It is time now for the COVID live updates of all Abuzz. And this is where we dive into a roundup of some of the hottest issues of the week. And here to give us some commentary as well as analysis on those issues is David Tizzard. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
All right. We've got a lot of topics, but I guess this next one is also something that will or has kind of affected you the most, I guess, in a way, because not directly, not high school students.
Sure.
You don't teach high school students, but this whole reopening of offline classes
Yes.
is something that you must be keeping a very close eye on.
Yeah, we're all affected in different ways by this COVID-19 pandemic. And while, of course, we're going to focus on how it affects our daily lives, we've also got to try to empathize and go out with how other people are feeling. So yes, the first two topics do affect me, but also I think they affect broader society. You just had Ji-hyun on, and she was giving us some great information about what's been happening with going back to school, how whether there have been more infections and how this is coping. What I want to do first of all is look at how the students, the parents and societies have been reacting to this news. So reading through the news yesterday with schools going back, and of course it was the high school seniors is going back first, yes, because Sunung is so important. They must get that done.
5 delays, 80 days of delay. So yeah, they
Yes.
just couldn't put it off any longer.
So looking online, I went through a few news articles and I was looking for what the students were saying about this. So looking through some Yonhap news articles, some of the students were saying, the first one said, "I'm excited to go to school after such a long time. I met my friend. We went to school together. It gave me hope and it made me feel good. Hopefully there will be no health issues."
Right.
That's a very positive message.
So, yeah, some semblance of kind of, normal life, I guess. Seeing
Yes.
friends, going back to school.
Sure.
That's
And
a positive.
I will say that my nephew, who is going back next week, he's also looking forward to it.
Yeah.
He wants to do that. Another student said that I have to wake up at 6 a.m. I don't eat because I have to leave at 6:30. I get there at 7:30, and so I'm tired. And the more tired you are, the easier it is to become infected. So what we find from this is that in terms of the school population, there's no monolith response. There's no single way that we can sum this up. There's going to be a huge disparity between these opinions, and some students look forward to it, some don't.
My niece returned to school yesterday too, and I was kind of worried. And I asked my sister about how she did, and they actually only went to school for about 2 hours. They braked before lunch,
Yes.
and then they continue with online classes in the afternoon. But she said for 2 hours, people were very good with their masks, but the social distancing, that's not really happening. Of
No.
the physical distancing rather, or 1 or 2 meters, because they will mill around. They're so happy to see their friends after
Yes.
this long break.
Yes.
So it almost becomes impossible to maintain that apparently. But 2 hours of mask wearing could be fine. But we were looking for these high school seniors to kind of set an example for the younger students. But
Right.
I guess it's kind of a warning that it may not be that easy, especially in the crowded, hot classrooms for kids to keep these
Yeah.
masks on all day long. It's not going to be easy.
And people might not believe it to look at me, but I was a high school student once as well. And you might remember being in high school, we broke all the rules we could.
Exactly.
If the teachers told us have short hair, we wanted long hair. If they said long skirts, we had short skirts or trousers. Students at that age do all they can to rebel and push against authority. It's part of a developmental stage, isn't it?
Yeah. And I heard some reports, media reports, where they interviewed students, and I think the majority said they're more worried about the college entrance exams, the disruptions to that, as you mentioned, because it is so important. And then some students say, "Oh, I'm not sure that people will keep their masks on. I'm worried about that." But it seems that the majority, even if it's health related, they're not that concerned, including my niece.
Yeah.
She's not that worried about.
Because you're
Catching
young and you don't feel anything like that. And perhaps
Invincible.
that's good. Yes.
I bet the parents feel differently, though.
Yeah, I did. So I made sure to look at what the parents, because it's a different viewpoint, and naturally it would be. The first parent said, "I'm worried about my children. My husband is also worried. I'm so worried that more people will get infected." Another parent said, "I saw children wearing school uniforms and going to school today. I cried a lot. It's a complicated feeling. I just want the teachers and students to be safe." And that's something that we haven't seen for so long. It's something that we became so accustomed to, so used to, seeing the children in
Right.
their school uniforms, which reminds us, let's say, of our position in life and what's going on. So it's a very big thing. Next week, I will have to send my son and my daughter off to kindergarten. And that's going to be a very interesting thing. How do you do that?
Yeah.
I'm not
How are
sure.
you feeling right now, you and your wife?
My wife is more worried than I am, which is natural, but I think we need a balance between us. So if we were both worried or if we were both, let's say, rather more blasé about it, that would be a bad combination. So
How good are your children with the mask wearing for long periods of time already, though?
it's fascinating because my son Edward will say to me, Daddy, when coronavirus is finished, can we go to England and can we go to the park? So he knows what's going on. And to hear that coming out of a child so young blows my mind sometimes. So yes, they're very good and they know what's happening.
That is very good to hear. All right. I mean, we'd heard kind of the view of students themselves and also parents. You said you brought a sort of a third view, that of society in large?
Well, it's a societal view, but there were a lot of comments on this topic where they said, if there are any problems with high school students, the Minister of Education will be responsible for everything, even lives. Another one said, schools, unlike clubs, are forced to open by the government, so don't blame teachers or students, even if you have confirmed students. And so this is not wishing to scapegoat or blame anyone here, but a lot of the comments are saying that this is a directive that comes top down. This is not something that's done through choice, like some of the other stories we've seen. And so I really hope that society doesn't seek to blame or push things onto it, but there is a voice that's saying this is the Ministry of Education's decision, and what comes from that will have to be their responsibility, either good or bad.
I think there are more of these concerns because of the recent outbreaks stemming from Itaewon and then the nth transmission stemming from that. Unfortunately, it came right at the time when schools were actually taking the step of reopening. So there is that concern. And there have been some discussions about whether the government is doing the right thing by keeping these norebangs, these clubs open.
Yes.
They said they might discuss closing them down, but they still haven't actually done that. And we've seen that they have become a primary source for infections.
It seems to be that inside areas, rather than being outside, inside areas seems to be a problem, but the government also needs to stimulate the economy. It's a difficult thing.
And again, like the ministry said, they don't know when this is going to be over, so they can't just keep pushing off everything. Daniel C., our longtime listener, saying it's a very hard time for parents and children. Absolutely, for all people, but I guess especially so for parents and children having to send their kids back to school. Now, for universities, the situation is a little different. Most of them have been carrying out some online classes. I know some of them carried offline classes as well. You did not resume with offline classes.
That's
but
correct.
What's happening with the exams? Because exam time is coming up.
Exam time is coming up, and so this is kind of a breaking story from yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon at 4 p.m., I received an email from my university which said the following. Sorry, this is the Hanyang University Department of International Studies. This email read, the university has made a decision that all finals will be conducted on campus face-to-face, unless students fall under the following category of being quarantined, staying abroad, or having a pre-approved health problem from a doctor.
Like a form?
The form, all students must come to campus to take the final test. And this is quite interesting because all the classes will be done offline. So they're not changing any of the classes. It's just for this final test.
Online, you mean? The classes are still being held online?
That's correct.
But it's just the exam that's being held offline.
That's correct.
Interesting.
And which is an interesting thing because for exams, most university professors have already found ways round to do these exams, or students submit assignments, they do an online test and such forth. So that solution has been solved.
So you've had tests before. It's only the finals that they're saying have to be held offline. And the reasoning being that they want to make sure that it's conducted fairly, no one is sort of cheating or whatnot.
Well, let's get into a couple of reasons. Just before I continue, some of the universities that this does affect that I know thus forth, Hanyang University, Hongik University, Dongyang University, Daegu Catholic University. So there are some. Why this is going on? Well, there was a huge reaction from the foreign professors community. Most were completely against it, I should say. It takes forever to do that. Some said that this is to justify the cost of university in Korea. So the universities are doing this to say, well, you did come in, you did attend here, so we can't give
for at least one exam or the finals.
For at least one exam. So it might be from that. Other people are saying, again, this is from the Ministry of Education that will be pushing this down, and so there's nothing. One professor said, if it's not safe enough to have classes, how can it be safe enough to have tests? And so lot of the professors were against it. I will say, though, that I put a message out to a couple of my students at Hanyang DIS, and a couple of them were quite positive, that they said, well, South Korea has reacted positively to what we've seen so far with the handling, the health system. And this one student made a very important point. If the younger kids are already going back, how are the younger children going back before the university students?
Right.
And if we're expecting these to go back, we should be going first, essentially, the student said. They didn't feel that was fair.
Okay.
And I think if my two children are having to go, I should be going before them. But the student did say, however, that it's one thing to sleep in the comfort of your own room and do exams, but now people are going to have to travel all over the country. They might be in Busan, Daegu, or anywhere. They're going to have to come up for one day, the accommodation, and that might, all that travel.
True. The risk definitely will go up. But what about the safety? I mean, like you say, mostly online classes, but the physical exams, going there and take the physical, isn't that to ensure fairness? Do most students agree with that it would be more fair? And because with the online tests, I don't know how that you would ensure that they are doing it without any help from other people.
A lot of my tests are on open book exams.
Okay.
So students
doesn't
can use
matter.
it's about, do they have the logic? Can they make an argument? So it's a difficult one. Personally, I feel that if the young kids are going back, universities should be in a similar situation. I'm not sure that we can discriminate between them like that. But there's a mixed opinion.
All right. We're going to touch very quickly on some celebrities who have been in the news and a certain animal.
Yeah, celebrities are always in the
Always
news.
in the news,
and that's what we've come to expect. But I've never seen an alpaca in the news this much. And if you're not quite sure what an alpaca is, listeners, go and have a look. They look, I don't mean this with any disrespect, but they look a little bit like an extended poodle.
Yes, a white poodle. Very cute.
Very, very cute. And celebrities were out partying with an alpaca. And there was a lot of blowback because celebrities shouldn't be out partying. There was accusations. And this is Lee Min-jung, this is Lee Ju-yeon,
stars.
Rahseungyun, that they were out in Itaewon. They've said they were out in Cheongdam-dong.
Right.
It's not that. So people have got to be careful when they upload pictures of parties or if they're doing social events, because society will see them and say, hey, you're not social distancing, you're not physical distancing, you're not wearing a mask, and you've got an alpaca.
Right. There were some claims that the alpaca was being sort of abused, right, by being forced to take part in this mass sort of party. But I will say there was a sort of an article, I guess, saying that more people now are not so afraid of getting sick. They are getting angry at these reports. They're getting angry that they're not able to return to their normal life. Thank you very much for those updates, David.
Thank you.
Best of luck with all the exams and offline classes.